Hi everyone! Welcome to TERF Wars. Sorry for being a little bit late, but I was much more on time than I was last week. Not quite sure what happened last week, but anyway, I'm here. So welcome to episode 13 of season 2. Very spooky. This is TERF Wars, the show where I go through the last week's worth of anti-trans, transphobic, gender critical, TERF nonsense. We look at what's been happening and we debunk it or we laugh at it. Or today is going to be a rant week. And I'm going to do some ranting, so brace yourself for some ranting. But there's loads of fun stuff too. And there's some really good news at the start. But yeah, let me know if you can hear me in the chat. I'm always a bit paranoid about sound. But anyway, so the purpose of the show is to just address arguments, laugh at rubbish ideas. It's not about finding people to target. So most of the people in the episode I've gone through and anonymised, which I always do. So don't go and search these people out. We're just here to laugh at their ideas. Every week there are some people who I don't anonymise, and it's because they are big people or relevant people. You know, if it's an international celebrity or someone who is relevant to the gender critical movement, then I think it's often important not to anonymise them because who they are is important. But even then, it's still not about targeting these people. So this isn't like, do not go and hunt these stupid tweets down. Don't harass people. That's completely bullshit. And it will give everyone a bad name for absolutely no reason. So anyway, I hope you've all had a good week. It's been a bit of a stressful week, as every week is in lockdown on TERF Island. But it's been a lot better week than it was the week before, which is good. As you will see from the first piece of good news, which was... So this actually happened today, and usually I only do last Friday to this Thursday, but I just needed to include this. So this is the Good Law Project. Did some court case with the UK's NHS health provider for trans kids' healthcare. So if you remember, late last year, the gender critical lobby used some anti-abortion lawyer to ban trans kids from getting healthcare, which was horrific, devastating, anti-science, complete bullshit. And it's been very depressing since. However, what that case hinged on was they said that kids couldn't consent to treatment. So that case hasn't been appealed yet. There is an appeal for that happening. I think it's in June, I'm not sure. Later this year, there will be an appeal and potentially that whole decision will be reversed. However, in the meantime, the Good Law Project has done a court case. I don't know the law terms. They've done a court case, mate, innit? And they found that children with supportive parents can get their parents to consent on their behalf. So that means there are children who don't have supportive parents, like lots of them. Lots of trans people don't have supportive parents, and that's horrible. And they are still stuck without access to healthcare or support or anything, which is bullshit. I mean, really shit. And the original ruling is disgusting, and I hope it gets overturned. However, this has helped quite a lot of people. I know quite a few families with young children who felt like, you know, their life had been taken away from them with the original ruling, and now this is like a hope. This is, you know, they would potentially, there could be another court case here. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? But for now, this is very positive, and I think today is just a celebration day. So tomorrow we can carry on fighting for all of the people who don't have healthcare still. But today we can celebrate that we made some progress, and congratulations to Joe Malcolm, or I'm not sure how you say his name, I'm sorry. But for doing this, he's been really great, and Good Law Project did well. And yeah, so amazing. I'm really pleased with this, and I know that I've talked to several families of trans kids, and it's such a relief that your kid is allowed the healthcare that the experts are saying is best for them. Like, no one should have to worry about that for their child. So anyway, yeah, that was good. So here's the Good Law Project's press release on this. I've put the link in the description if anyone wants to read it. They mention about how they've got this appeal coming for the original case. So maybe they'll win that, maybe they won't. I don't know where it's going to go. But they're also talking about raising money for, like, I don't know what the word is again, doing another lawsuit, mate, in order to get the terrible waiting times on the NHS to the government to act about them. So I'm not affiliated with Good Law Project at all. I just have talked to some of the people involved. And if you read their press release, they describe it. And if you're interested in that and you think they sound like they've done a good job today, then maybe go and have a look and maybe donate. Yeah, so anyway, that's really good news. And I hope that's cheered everyone up who didn't know about it already. So on to the bullshit. So another good piece of news that happened recently actually was not trans rights, but gay rights. Japan had a Supreme Court ruling and decided that banning same-sex marriage was unconstitutional. So that doesn't mean that it's now legal. It doesn't really mean much. What it does mean is they think it's illegal to ban it. So there's probably a lot of push to happen. Like Japan's quite slow when it comes to legislative stuff. And I'm sure all of the LGBT rights and activists in Japan are working really hard on this, and there's probably a long road ahead of them. But this is a really good piece of news. And I've included it here from our friend who is a supersexual, which we discussed a couple of weeks ago. And I've included their little comment on it because it's so ridiculous and it's relevant to trans people. They've said there is no longer any need for same-sex marriage laws. Anyone who wants to marry can just feel heterosexual. So this is some snide, stupid jab at trans people. They're just saying, well, if two gay men want to get married, then one of them can just like say they're a woman and then you can just have a straight marriage. And maybe in a country where they had legal self-recognition of gender, but they didn't have same-sex marriage, that would be a workaround that people actually did. And if that was the case, that would be bullshit, because no one should have to lie in order to be able to get married to their significant other. So to be clear, that would be anti-LGBT rights position. No trans person would want that, because it would mean that like a trans woman who wanted to marry another woman, one of them would have to say they're a man. So like it's just obviously anti-trans rights. So even as a snide jab, it doesn't make any sense. But also Japan has absolutely terrible laws for trans people. So if like in Japan, you can't change your legal gender if you've ever had a child. Like that's, you just can't do it. I think maybe if they're like 21 or older, you can, but like even if you're not raising the child, you just can't change your legal documents or anything. I'm not even sure you can access healthcare in the country. So to make some ridiculous, ignorant jab, which doesn't even make sense anyway, but also to make it about Japan, which has abysmal laws for trans people, just doesn't make any sense. And it just shows how stupid and ignorant these kind of people are. Anyway, stupid and ignorant is the theme of this week, as it is every week. Onwards, talking of stupid and ignorant, so I'm starting off with like the bigger news articles here. And then we'll get onto the main theme, and then we'll finish off with a brain rot. So this is an article by Chad Felix Green, who is an American conservative person. And I just included it just for this one line, which is highlighted here. So Elliot Page, who came out maybe earlier this year, maybe late last year, I can't actually remember. My brain has rotted so much from lockdown that it's all just one haze. But Elliot Page came out, and Chad Felix Green has said, Elliot Page appears to be the model for rapid onset gender dysphoria. So anyone who doesn't know what ROGD is, it's basically a conspiracy theory that says being trans is like a social contagion, like a social disease, like you can catch trans from talking to other trans people. It's the same anti-LGBT bullshit that it always is. Like you'll catch the gay if you know a gay like it's the same garbage. But and also to be clear, there is no evidence for it. There is one paper which it's worth looking up, this one paper, because it is, the story behind it is ridiculous and is so bad. Anyway, it's basically a conspiracy theory. But also, like the whole point in this ROGD thing is in order to delegitimize trans children and to say when a trans kid comes out, you're like, oh, you're not really trans because you've just suddenly come out with it. So there's no evidence, so I'm not going to listen to you. And then I'm just going to ignore you for the rest of your life is kind of the whole point of this. But Elliot isn't a child. Elliot's like 30 something. I don't actually know. Maybe he's 20 something. I don't know. Sorry, Elliot, for getting your age wrong. But importantly, isn't a child and also has said that he's felt this his whole life. Or at least for a long time. So I actually think Chad Felix Green here is right. Elliot Page is the perfect model of rapid onset gender dysphoria because they are just a normal trans person who's dealt with trans stuff their whole life and then who came out to people and then everyone says, oh, I wasn't expecting that. And it's like, yeah, that's what rapid onset gender dysphoria is. It's normal gender dysphoria and then you come out and tell people. That's it. That's what it is. So he is right, but for all the wrong reasons. Garbage. So, and then a couple of other things here. I reached 40,000 followers on Twitter, whatever. That wasn't the point of the news, but I've included it because it got this funny comment from this guy, and this guy's going to show up next in a second. Oh, my light's flickering. Why is it doing that? And it's a football profile picture. So we know all of the football profile picture people are something to do with the chocolate incident. And if you don't know what that is, you're just going to have to watch another episode because I'm not getting back in onto ranting onto that. But he says, on my comment, making a joke about having 40,000 followers in which I drew over the Warhammer logo, he says, you won't stop until Mr. and Mrs. is gone from the English language. Well, yeah, I actually don't think I will stop getting more followers on Twitter until those words are gone from the English language or until, more likely, Twitter goes bust or I die. What a weird comment. And why, like, this is, again, such a, like, a cis person who's a transphobe who knows absolutely nothing and just makes up what they want about trans people. They're like, oh, trans people, they're always messing with words. I bet they want to ban Mr. and Mrs. from the English language. It's like, no, when a trans woman gets married, she may well want to be Mrs. And, like, most trans men are going to want to be Mr. Like, we don't want to get rid of these words just because some people don't want these words. And that's actually just a general feminist position, not anything really to do with trans people. That Mrs. is like a title that represents exchanging women between men. There's a whole history about feminists opposing the institution of marriage. But I don't know, it's just nonsense, isn't it? It's just such a joke. Like, anyway, I'm not going to linger on it too long because we have a lot of brain rot to cover this week. So he also came out with this amazing comment. So this is just an update on the chocolate incident. This guy says they were arguing about who was offended about what. And this guy says, Katie was the one who was upset. She said she wrote a letter to the Nestle chairman when she was 10. No, I didn't. Where has this come from? Like, what? I guess the myth of the chocolate incident is going to keep on exaggerating, and soon maybe I will be the Nestle chairman. I have no idea. I'm not quite sure where that's come from. Oh, okay. So this is an article from 2008, and it's not relevant to this week at all, other than I saw it this week. So I'm clearly very on the ball. This is the Cutting Edge News Show, straight in from 2008. But I just saw it and was disgusted by it. And seeing as the UK is currently discussing banning conversion therapy, I just thought it'd be worth reading this out because it's important. So this article is also in the description. It's called Two Families Grapple with Son's Gender Identity. So the part that I wanted to read out, I'm just going to read this bit out. And it is crushing. Like, this is horrible to read. So just brace yourself if you were, like, I guess if you have any empathy, just be ready. So this is Kenneth Zucker, who is one of the, like, trilogy of old school sexologists who come out with absolute bullshit against trans people, along with Michael Bailey and Ray Blanchard. Anyway, it says, Zucker's worked with the population for close to 30 years, has a very specific method for treating these children. Whenever Zucker encounters a child younger than 10 with a gender identity disorder, he tries to make the child comfortable with the sex he or she was born with. So, just conversion therapy. So, to treat Bradley, I mean, I'm going to use the name and pronouns they've got in this article because of how it ends, and there's no reason why I wouldn't do that, but anyway, Zucker explained to the mother that she and her husband would have to radically change their parenting. So, this guy is praised by gender critical people, by the way. People who are claimed to be critical of gender. Bradley would no longer be allowed to spend time with girls. He would no longer be allowed to play with girl toys or pretend that he was a female character. Zucker said that all of these activities were dangerous to a kid with who was trans. He explained that unless Carol and her husband helped the child to change behaviour, as he grew older, he would likely be rejected by both peer groups. Boys would find his feminine interests unappealing. Girls would want more boyish boys. So this is already disgusting. Firstly, if you are a boy and you like feminine interests or girlish things, good. Like, good for you. That's fine. That's what we should be. We shouldn't be like forcing, like, maybe this child isn't a trans girl and just happens to like, you know, hobbies that are typically associated with girls. So what? Let him do them. If like other boys don't find him appealing, then they're shit people and he can find better friends. I would be friends with a kid like that. I would have been friends with a kid like that when I was little. Like, who cares? Garbage. And then girls would want more boyish boys. He might not even be interested in girls. So that's a completely ridiculous suggestion. And also, loads of women like men. Like, of course, women like men who like some of the hobbies that they like. It's just such a bullshit, cis heteronormative garbage. Anyway, Carol resolved to do her best. Still, these were huge changes. By the time Bradley started therapy, he was almost 6. So this child is 6. And Carol had a full house of Barbie dolls and Polly Pockets. She now removed them, the cushion to bow. She didn't take the toys away all at once. She told Bradley he could choose 1 or 2 toys a day. In the beginning, he didn't really care because he picked the stuff that he didn't play with. But then it really got down to the last few. Oh man, this is so grim. As his pile of toys dwindled, Carol realised Bradley was hoarding. She would find female action figures stashed between couch pillows. Rainbow unicorns were hidden in the back of Bradley's closet. He seemed at a loss, she said. They gave him male toys, but he didn't want to play at all. He turned to colouring and drawing, and he simply wouldn't play with anything. He would colour and draw for hours and hours, and that would be all he did in a day, said Carol. I think he was really lost. The whole way he knew... I think he was really lost. The whole way that he knew and understood how to play was just short of, removed from his house. His drawings, however, proved problematic. Bradley would populate his pictures with toys and interests he no longer had access to. This is just heartbreak. Just imagine taking your toys away from your child and then in a depression, they started drawing the toys that you took away from them. Like, what's wrong with these people? This is horrible. Bradley would populate his pictures with toys and interests he no longer had access to. Princesses with long flowing hair, fairies in elaborate dresses, rainbows of pink and purple. So under Zucker's direction, Carol and her husband sought to change that as well. We would ask him, can you draw a boy for us? Can you draw a boy in that picture? And he really didn't want to see his drawings or watch him. And then he didn't really want us to see his drawings or watch him drawing because he would always say, can you draw a boy? Then finally after, I don't know, a month or 2, he just said, Mama, I don't know how to draw a boy. Carol finally sat down and showed him. From then onward, Bradley drew boys as directed. Male figures with anemic caps of hair on the head filled the pages of his sketchbook. Like, it's just disgusting. What's wrong with these people? Imagine, forcing your kid into some bullshit box where they, you take all their toys away and then make sure that they draw the right... Oh, it's just horrible. Just trying to sort out the haze around my head. Hopefully that's better. It's just disgraceful. This isn't conversion therapy at its worst. I think this is just plainly soul destroying. Like taking a child's imagination away is like something out of like some kind of, you know, kid's story where there's some evil villain who wants to destroy the concept of fun or something. Sorry, I was just finding my bottle opener. Yay. Yeah, it's just heartbreaking. And, you know, conversion therapy can get a lot more extreme. Like, they also said that he couldn't play with his friends who were girls. Like, taking their friends away is just isolating. It causes real psychological damage to children to take away their friends and toys and imagination. Like, I don't know, this was 2008 and Bradley was 6 or 7 or something then. So could easily be an adult now and may still be in the closet, may have transitioned. Maybe just is a man who enjoys feminine things. Who knows? I just hope that whatever this child has grown up to be, they're happy with, and they've managed to escape this bullshit. And hopefully the parents have seen that they did the wrong thing here, and it's disgusting. And it's certainly not critical of gender, that's for sure. It's like gender police. Anyway, moving on. I mentioned there was like a 3 horsemen scenario. So this is Michael Bailey, and this is just another. So this is an old one. This is from 2020. This one just came up in the same week, and I just sort of put them together because these two are related and they've written papers together. This guy, who is a professor of sexology or whatever he wants to call it, says, this does not mean that women are more bisexual, however. Sexual arousal patterns are much less related to women's sexual identities than they are to men. In fact, they are nearly irrelevant to women. We don't really understand female sexual orientation, if it exists. Gender critical hero and like researcher here, still not sure if women actually are attracted to things. What are you talking about, mate? Oh, it's just such rubbish. Like, when you treat everyone as like an alien and just completely ignore everything they say, then you end up forcing conversion therapy on LGBT people and claiming that women don't have sexualities. Like, you're just bad at research. If you come to the conclusion that women don't have a sexuality, you're just shit at your job. Like, it's like doing a load of physics and then coming to the conclusion that the Earth doesn't exist. It's like, you've done something wrong in your calculations, mate. This isn't like some new discovery. You're just shit. It's just such a joke. Oh, missing slide. Let's hope that wasn't important. Right, so begin the rant. So this is how it started. So me replying to a Times journalist who is called Janice Turner, who has written lots of back-to-back disgusting articles about trans people, including the classic children are being sacrificed to the trans lobby. Anyway, I said, so this is about the census, which has been going on for weeks, and everyone's filled in now, and all the trans people tick the box they always would have ticked anyway, so it's a complete waste of time and money. But I said trans people are always going to answer with their actual sex and not their birth sex, like they always have, and good. This is about data and provisioning services, not about enforcing anti-trans ideology. Trans women use women's services, and so they should be counted appropriately. Of course, absolutely no one attempted to address my argument here, and they came up with all kinds of nonsense. This isn't the start of the rant point, but this is like where the history comes from. So this was just a comment about the census and about women's services. So of course I got loads of stupid replies. This was just a handful. I couldn't be bothered to go through and get all of them, but I had loads and loads here, particularly people saying, do we provision for cervical smears and mammograms based on identity or birth sex? The next person, oh, like pregnancy pap smears and mammograms, like mammograms and natal services. Oh, thrush, cysts in breasts, lumps in breasts, leaking nipples. I fail to see why it's irrational to think that a doctor who deals with women's reproductive system should ever see a trans woman who cannot have any of these. So they're just so ignorant of what a trans person even is. They literally have no fucking idea. And it's because they're like the whole ideology is sex is binary. That means that it literally doesn't matter what a trans person does. Like a trans woman is exactly the same as a man, and a trans man is exactly the same as a woman. That's like the whole thing. And they need that to be true for the whole ideology to work. And then that ends up with them saying things like trans women don't need mammograms, which is not just wrong, but dangerous. Because if you knew a trans woman who wasn't very informed, or if you were, for example, a medical professional, which one of the people who replied to me was, I didn't manage to refine the screenshot of them. I'm sure you could go and find it, but I've had this several times before where I've clicked through someone saying some like anti-science garbage, and it's like, a nurse or a paramedic or something. And like, if you were the medical professional that a trans woman went to and said, oh, I've got like a lump on my breast, and they said, well, it's fine because you're a biological male, therefore you're not at risk of breast cancer, which, by the way, is also false because cis men and trans men can get breast cancer too, like anyone can, but the rates are much higher when you have breasts. That's why women sometimes get preventative mastectomies, because if you remove the breast tissue, your chance of getting breast cancer is a lot lower. I mean, that's kind of common sense, but it's also the science backs that up. So of course trans women can get them, and if a medical professional was saying they couldn't, then that would be dangerous because it might end up in someone missing an important cancer screening. And the NHS even knows it. I mean, the NHS is terrible for trans healthcare, but they will send out reminders and do mammograms for trans women, so that's good. I also got this comment, slight little detour. Debbie Hayton also replied, who is a trans woman who is part of the gender critical movement. And I said the same thing. I was like, basically said the same thing. And then someone's replied to me, please listen to Debbie. Your position is bonkers. Debbie has infinitely more knowledge of trans issues than you could even possibly have. She is trans. Like, oh, in that case, I concede. Anyway, so off the back of like 20 people, including a medical professional, telling me again that trans women don't need mammograms, I said, and I think this is a very fair tweet, always extra horrifying when you click through on some idiot saying some garbage about trans women not needing mammograms and seeing that they're a medical professional. Genuinely terrifying. And it is, I think, terrifying. And this isn't just like some hypothetical. As a trans person, I've already struggled to get healthcare for being trans, full stop. And I know that the system is set up in a way where they can only tick male or female. And if they only tick male, then I'll miss out on things like mammograms. And if they only tick female, then I start getting letters about cervical smears. I don't have a cervix. And then I say to them, by the way, I don't have a cervix. You don't need to send me these letters. And then they say, no, sorry, we can't do anything about it because our system is so shit, because the system is built around some binary. That's not the true for every doctor surgery, by the way, because the previous doctor surgery was able to tick all the different boxes individually, whereas my current one can't for some reason because the system's shit. Anyway, I think most trans people have some kind of fear of meeting a bigot in healthcare and either missing out some trans care, healthcare, or missing out some like other healthcare unrelated, because this happens too. And this is relevant. This also happened this week. So Arkansas, I think that's how you say this state name. Arkansas legislator passes bill to allow EMTs and doctors to refuse to treat LGBTQ people. The bill to allow healthcare providers to turn away patients due to their religious beliefs is headed to the Republican governor's desk. So this is a real thing that like it happens more in America, but they're really genuinely pushing for laws to protect doctors who say, sorry, you're gay, sorry, you're trans, I'm not going to help you. And this isn't just for trans healthcare or for HIV medication, which, by the way, would still be disgusting if you were to just choose not to help people, just choose not to do your job because you're a bigot. But this has killed people before. There's a few Wikipedia pages about trans women who Like there was one example of a trans woman who was like in a minor car crash, and I'm not sure what was wrong with them. And then when the paramedics turned up, they realised that she was a trans woman and just said no and just drove off. And then she then got to the hospital eventually, and then the doctors refused to treat her, and she just died. She just died of something she didn't need to die of because the doctors were like, I'm transphobic, so I'm not going to do anything about it. And then what? And then because the state didn't have a law saying that was against the law, they just got away with it. Like someone died because of this. And it's not like it's rare, but it's not rare to encounter prejudice in trying to get healthcare. I think every trans person's probably encountered some kind of irrational prejudice. So like I think this tweet isn't just a comment. This is a genuine fear that I have all the time when I'm interacting with healthcare professionals. Because you just don't know, especially when like you meet gender critical healthcare professionals, like when you meet gender critical policemen on Twitter and you're like, well, if I had an incident and I needed to call for help, you wouldn't help me because you're too prejudiced to even see me as a human. Horrifying. Anyway, just again, going to underline how you can draw your own conclusion about whether this tweet is reasonable or not. But I don't think it's controversial. I say some controversial things. I think even earlier, celebrating trans kids getting healthcare is more controversial than this tweet, even though that's pretty plainly good. I think anyone who wasn't hateful, transphobic person would want trans people to get the best healthcare for them. Anyway, we're talking about gender critical people, so here's the garbage. So Graham Linehan has a blog, and it's just basically what he does instead of Twitter now. And it's hosted on Substack, who seem to host a lot of people of his calibre, and they haven't replied to any people's complaints. And I know there's been a lot of them, especially this week. So if you know anyone at Substack, maybe give them a poke. Anyway, so Graham posted this letter, which allegedly came from one of his readers. We'll get onto the allegedly part in a minute. So they said... And there's two parts to this, and I think it's important to recognise the two parts. And the first part is very grim. So we're just going to read that first. This one hurts. I lost Christina to breast cancer in 2014, leaving with me a 7-year-old daughter. I married Sarah, also a widow, in 2016, and we were bringing up my daughter and her 2 boys as one big family. She also died of breast cancer in December, 3 months ago. I have 3 young children, who between them have lost 3 of their 4 parents to cancer, and I'm not yet 50. That is horrifying. Whether this letter is true or not, this situation has happened to people, and I think it's very important to just not throw these things away, because this genuinely could be a real person with real kids who suffered this actual thing, and it's horrible. It, like breast cancer, any cancer ruins people's lives. I mean, obviously, it kills people, but it ruins the lives of people with loved ones who get cancer and cancer survivors. It's stressful. It's horrible. You know, everyone is impacted by cancer in their life. Everyone either has cancer or knows someone who has cancer. It's such a common condition, and it's horrible. And that's why it's one of the, the biggest pushes in medical science is always to try and combat it and eradicate it, and everyone knows this. I don't really need to say it, but this is really grim, and my heart genuinely goes out to William and his children and the families of his ex-wives, because that's horrific. But then he says, and this person is me, this person who just said that tweet that I was just talking about, where I'm scared about being denied breast cancer screenings, says this person is gloating about how taking hormones is increasing their chances of getting breast cancer. Gloating. Actually fucking said that. Discussing how he's allegedly lost 2 of his loved ones to breast cancer, and is accusing me of gloating about worrying about getting breast cancer. Like, this is actually sick. And of needing a mammogram. Get to fuck, you disrespectful, arrogant shit. I'm so sorry, I just had to say it to someone. Like, what is wrong with you? And this is such a common gender critical thing. We're going to see a lot in like the next few tweets and stuff, is they come up with this horrible thing that they've experienced, that trans people experience too. And then they just say, you can't experience this. And then they blame it on you. And it, like, this isn't related. Why is me worrying about breast cancer on behalf of myself and expressing something that so many trans people fear for very good real life reasons? Why is that related to this story? Why would you read someone saying, I'm scared because I'm going to need mammograms as I get older and I'm worried about encountering someone who might deny them? Why would someone who had experienced loss from breast cancer see that as gloating? Like, what is wrong with you? Absolutely disgusting. So not only was it disgusting for this person who wrote it, Graham Linehan then decided that it was a point and posted it on his blog on Substack, which was, I mean, of course he did. Such a loser. So obviously expressing some kind of approval of this position. And then this lady brought it to Twitter, and that's where it blew up. And she said, this made me cry, it's heartbreaking. And the first half, I can totally understand why it made you cry. And so I'm just going to make this point now. If she read the first half, and that was what made her cry, and she disagreed with the second half, then perhaps she could have said that, because the second half is disgusting. To accuse me of gloating or any trans person of gloating of being at risk of cancer. Anyway, there's a few slides coming up about this lady, and I wasn't sure whether to anonymize her. This isn't really about her. She just happened to be, she's fairly well known in the gender critical movement and has just done such a classic gender critical thing, and just also happens to have some other links, which I'll just discuss in a minute. This could have been anyone. There was quite a lot of them doing similar things, but she was just big enough and important enough that I was on the line, so I wasn't sure. But genuinely, please just leave her alone. This isn't about her. This is about the disgusting reaction from the gender critical people about my fear or all trans people's fear. I'm not speaking on behalf of trans people, but I would be surprised if there was any trans people who don't at least worry about this very real possibility. So here's some of the comments on Graham Linehan's blogs. William, you're right to feel angry. They're playing at being women, but women can self-ID out of breast cancer. Or women can't self-ID out of breast cancer. Trans women can't self-ID out of breast cancer. No one who has breasts can self-ID out of breast cancer. That's not what self-ID means. That makes no sense. And it's a counter to your own point, because I can't self-ID out of it either. So, nonsense. Next person. That just broke my heart. If you're reading, William, I'm so sorry. People like Katie are incapable of empathy. And with every insensitive word they spew, show time and time again how vile and thoughtless they are. Just beyond ironic. What are you talking? I'm not showing empathy because I'm worrying about something that might affect me. It's nothing to do with anyone else. And then someone else tries to make it as if I'm gloating about cancer, and then they should this. I feel like I'm going insane already. We haven't even started on how ridiculous this got. This is so ridiculous. This situation where they can all be genuinely furious at the idea, at me saying, I am worried about my own healthcare for valid reasons. Demonstrably valid reasons, not valid concerns reasons, but as in, here's an actual place where people have actually died from this. Here's a medical professional actually saying that they don't think trans women need mammograms. Garbage. My sincere condolences, William. So, all of these, being super charitable here, they're all right to send condolences to this man, because regardless of whether he's been an absolute dickhead about the second half, even dickheads still don't deserve their loved ones to die from cancer, because it's horrific. Anyway, And while it's true that men have been known to get breast cancer, it's vanishingly rare and therefore mass mammogram testing is unnecessary. The hateful Katie and his womb envy. We aren't talking about men, and when you pretend that trans women are men, then you say things like, trans women don't need mammograms, which is false. Thank you for sharing, William. Another ridiculous result of the census is that women's health provision might get reduced because of the overrepresentation of women saying they're men. No, what will actually mess up the women's provision of healthcare is if all the trans women had to tick male, and then they will need breast cancer screenings, like they do. So ridiculous. Everything they say just doesn't make any sense. It's just blind reaction nonsense which contradicts itself. If they were actually concerned about women, the people who are getting mammograms and the relation between that with the census, then they wouldn't be pushing their position on the census. I hope you're enjoying rant mode because there's a little bit more to come. Sorry, everyone. So anyway, the reason I just mentioned this lady, she is the CEO of this app called Giggle, which is an app for, it's like a no trans woman dating app. So, you know, the kind of people that's going to attract. And importantly, Giggle has signed the Women's Human Rights Campaign's declaration. So Women Human Rights Campaign are some people that we covered in a few videos ago who, in their Gender Recognition Act submission, they said that they wanted to, like, just straight out came out and said that they want to ban all trans healthcare, and that they want to ban all trans women from all women's spaces, like blanket ban in all situations. This declaration that they've signed also says about that. I have read the whole thing, but it was a while ago. I can't remember if it mentions healthcare. But you can just search this, have a look at what the declaration says. It's really fucking grim. Like, it's aggressively anti-trans, because it's like it wants explicit bans of all trans women from all women's spaces. So, like, not a good start here. And she's also does a lot of interacting with our friend Jennifer Bilek. Just putting that out there. Anyway, so she did reply saying, she replied to me, but I'm blocked. She's blocked me. I haven't blocked her. She's blocked me, so I couldn't see it. But someone else showed me that she said she does actually think that everyone should get the healthcare they need, which I feel like maybe you could be a little bit more specific given the topic, but like, fair enough. I think that's, I'm glad that she added that correction. Thank you that you agree that I should be able to get mammograms when I am older and need them. Like, I think that's a pretty bare minimum position, but thank you. But then she then dug a hole a bit deeper and said, I can't speak for William, but I can tell you my interpretation of what he said. For many male-born people, taking HRT is a choice, particularly in this current era. Increases the risk of breast cancer. It seems to be fetishized, and that angers him. This is so disgusting. Like, they are just, I mean, they're just talking about me. But, I mean, I guess to some of them, I am like, just, you know, a trans woman. So it's not necessarily specifically about me, but like, this is just what it feels like. They're just saying, oh, I'm gloating about cancer. Oh, you're fetishizing getting cancer. It's disgusting. What is wrong with you? Like, no one is fetishizing cancer. No one is gloating about getting cancer. It's disgusting. Like, the only way you could possibly say that is if you just completely dehumanize trans people to some kind of like evil thing which just takes joy from pain and suffering. Like, what are you talking about? Someone says, I find Katie's attitude somewhat problematic when it comes to healthcare resulting from trans hormone treatment. Very dismissive of possible osteoporosis. I'm not actually. That's something else I'm concerned about. That's one of the reasons that I'm worried about gender critical people banning my access to healthcare, because without it, I would get osteoporosis, which is something that happens to older women and women who don't produce their own hormones, who can't get HRT because it's estrogen or testosterone are necessary for bone strength. So I'm not dismissive of that at all. That's a completely ridiculous claim. And it's also not relevant to this at all. Then she says, yes, I think this is what William was getting at in his letter. There are males putting themselves at risk by choosing to go on HRT, whereas millions of women, including you and both of his wives, had extremely bad luck. It is not a choice to be trans, and I am as much choosing to transition as you are like choosing to need your tooth taken out if you have a toothache, or like you're choosing to not get a mastectomy. I'm choosing to not get a mastectomy too, because like I think that's a reasonable thing that most people do every single day. They choose today is not the day they get a mastectomy. It's not really a choice, is it? Like healthcare isn't a choice. You're presenting it like being trans is a choice, and it isn't. That is a garbage position. And I mean, everyone knows that. Like, it's rubbish. Apparently, this is controversial to say. Yes, because you're saying that being trans is a choice. You're saying trans healthcare is a choice. I don't want to increase my risk of breast cancer, but I want to live a happy and good life like you do. I'm the same as everyone else. What's wrong with you? Then we got some generic gender critical reactions, which were all even more vile. I move around in this debate constantly reminded of those white people who like to point to me and say, I love to be black, as if it was something you were by choice or preference, and skin bleaching wasn't a societal offence against your bodily integrity. Fuckers. I believe that some trans women only seek refuge from masculinity. I used to think they were the majority, not anymore. Too many only too gleeful about womanhood for me to feel safe enough to not make a fuss about the legitimacy of women's spaces in public toilets. Like, of course this is now about toilets. And that's where this is going, because it always does. There's a really weird attitude in this particular one about this kind of like idea of like, oh, trans women enjoy being women, therefore it's suspicious. Like, not everyone hates being a woman. Like, most cis women don't hate being women. All women at some point, including trans women, think being women is shit because you face misogynistic violence, misogynistic. When you are sexually assaulted in front of people and they don't do anything, it can make you feel like, I hate being a woman. And that's bullshit. That's a valid reaction. But really what you hate is sexism. You hate the situation in society where women are treated less. And that is a fair thing to hate. And it's something trans women feel too. But lots of people are also happy with who they are. And that's like the whole reason that you would suffer if you transitioned. Like, if you hate being a woman so much and being trans is a choice, then why don't you just choose to transition into a man? Of course you're not going to, because you would absolutely hate it and it would ruin your life. Sorry everyone, I'm in proper rant mode. There's a few more to go. Those poor children. Yes. People like William don't deserve to have such things flung in their face. Breast cancer is awful. And many of us have lost loved ones to it. And to have it, like everything else, made about their AGP in some way is just uncalled for. Even death is transphobic. Disgusting comment. So AGP is autogynephilia, which is to gender it's a bit controversial what this means, but to gender critical people it means men who have a fetish for being a woman. And that's what they're all talking about. This, like, some people are fetishizing getting breast cancer. Some people are gloating about getting cancer. Like, I'm apparently gloating about getting cancer. I have some weird fetish. Like, this is disgusting. And it's so disgusting. Like, it's beyond disgusting that someone will be this, like, this is full brain rot territory. When you like, oh, I just have valid concerns, and your valid concerns are that someone is gloating about being able to get breast cancer, then you've lost your mind. Like, you are beyond. You're so far beyond the line that you're probably... In rant mode, I pulled off my own earring. You're so far beyond the line that you're probably never going to come back. How could you dehumanize someone this much? To think that there's some kind of fetish about... Who would sign up? Who would choose? Who would sign up for a world where you have to actually genuinely fear for your healthcare? Like, I can't express this enough. This is probably, as a trans person, my biggest fear. Like, I am scared of being randomly attacked on the street. I am scared of being accused of a crime that I didn't commit and going to prison, a men's prison. Like, I am scared of trans rights being taken away, but the fear of my own healthcare, something which I have to do something about every single month of my life, the rest of the year. Every single month of the year for the rest of my life is what I meant to say. There's such a fear, and it's so oppressive. It's just something to worry about. Like, I'm a bit of a hypochondriac. I worry about my healthcare all the time. I worry about my health all the time and whether I'm staying healthy all the time. And to suggest that I'd just chosen this as like a joke, or even worse, as some kind of sex thing, is just so disgusting. And this is like standard gender critical. Like, this is just a normal level of gender critical disgusting. Like, there's so many of these. Brought here to my eye, these arsehole activists have no idea the pain they cause when they pretend they are something they simply are not. I'm not pretending to need mammograms that's literally recommended to me by the doctors because I have breasts. Like, ugh. And then they always do this, like, oh, they have no empathy, whilst themselves having absolutely no empathy, unambiguous lack of empathy here, an inability to treat other people as human. Like, it's a real serious issue with these people. Over the last few years, I've read thousands of posts from trans-identified males talking about how their porn and their disgusting sexual ideas of womanhood, that wasn't a real sentence, they turn our entire lives into sexual entertainment. So the TRAs, trans rights activists on this threads, can fuck off. We know most of your pervs don't lie. Like, what? Where has this come from? Well, I know where it's come from. It's come from gender critical. This is a baseline gender critical belief that, like, I'm just saying the same thing again, that for some reason I was like, I have such a hate boner for women that I want to become one and get a risk of breast cancer, and that turns me on. And then I'm going to post about my genuine fear of it on Twitter as part of that ploy. Like, you've lost your mind. All of these people have lost their grip on reality. Like, this is so unhinged and detached from any kind of rational position that anyone could ever come to. You can't. This isn't like just casual ignorance. This is starting at ignorance and spending years and years indoctrinating yourself into some hateful echo chamber which teaches you to dehumanize people so much that you can just look at someone who's worrying about their health and say, oh, it's a fetish. There's only a couple more of these, don't worry. Quite telling that Katie thinks that they should be involved in everything a woman can possibly discuss or go through. I, as a real woman, would never want to presume to step into a discussion regarding breast cancer unless I was offering my condolences. Or maybe if you, for example, were facing irrational prejudice which might pick you out and deny you breast cancer services. Maybe you would say, I'm worried about being denied breast cancer screenings. And then this person says, I included this one just because it's funny. Now, Katie has been a woman for all of 2 weeks. Yeah, mate, just go back to TERF WARS, like episode 10. Full on man then. Like, you can see it. Just go and have a look. Lol. Anyway, this was the main reason I included this person, didn't anonymize them, I guess. I don't know. But like, I wrote most of this in a Twitter thread saying, this is disgusting. I've had time to get over it now and rant about it to a lot of people. But at the time, I was actually genuinely, literally overwhelmed with how disgusting this was. I think this is one of the most disgusting things they've ever encountered from gender critical people. And I don't really know if I'm doing justice describing how ridiculous this is to accuse someone of gloating, of fearing for their own health. So anyway, I presented this whole thing because I just could not believe it, and I need to talk to people about this when it happens. This is one of the reasons why I do TERF Wars. When things like this happen, which are just so insane, so ridiculous, you have to share it with people, and I'm glad I can share it with all you guys, and I hope that you don't feel like you're taking this burden on, but I hope you feel like you're sharing it with me and everyone in the chat, and that's a way, it's like cathartic and getting it out. But then, of course, she says, I shared a story about a man losing 2 wives to breast cancer and now I'm in block mode. No, you didn't just share a story about a man losing 2 wives to breast cancer. You shared a story about a man losing 2 wives to breast cancer who then personally accused me of gloating about being able to get cancer. Why do they always have to do... Why can they never... They always have to wuss out of what they did. They always have to lie about it. It's like the classic, all she did was say sex is real and now she's got fired. All I did was put my arm out and now they're crying and it's nothing to do with me. It's like classic child level bullying where you do something horrible and then all you did was share something without comment. Like you could have said, but the second half is disgusting. Even then it would have been lame to share it without cropping it. You obviously shared it because you either agreed with it or you didn't care enough to say that the second half was disgusting. All I did was share it. No, fuck off. It's so pathetic. And then, pretending that I'm now coming for them because they have empathy for a man whose wife's died of cancer. I have a lot of empathy for a man whose wife's died of cancer. There's another layer of disgusting here. In what world do trans people just not have empathy for people who have lost loved ones to cancer? Loads of trans people have lost loved ones to cancer. The same amount as cis people have. It's just so many layers of dehumanization here. And then she said, this is why we need female spaces. How is it? It's back to toilets again. How is it? So what's actually happened here? Like, all of this is still up. And I encourage you, I'm not misrepresenting this at all. Just go have a look at this whole situation. But don't start harassing people. Just ignore it. It's done. We've moved on now. But if you think I might be misrepresenting this, I promise. What's happened here is I've said trans people should fill in the census because that's, for them, to help with services. And then loads of people show up and say, trans women don't need mammograms. And then I say, I'm worried that so many people think trans women don't need mammograms, especially when they're medical professionals. Then someone says I'm gloating about cancer. Then it gets shared and then a huge pile-on. I got a big pile-on over this, calling me a pervert for being scared of my own healthcare. And then suddenly I'm the aggressor. What is going on? It's just so ridiculous. And this is just so made up. Everything about this is just, they just invent anything. They will literally make up anything. It doesn't matter. They'll just make it up. So she then says, I've got her blocked. I don't know how she's seeing my tweets. And then this next person says, well, you can view all of someone's tweets by logging out. That isn't actually, I didn't actually look up any of these. People sent them to me. A lot of people were disgusted by this. I had so many DMs over this. And then she says, yet another reason why female online spaces are necessary. So that's a little push in the app, my space for cis women only, which uses some kind of facial recognition technology, which obviously you could just show it a photo that you downloaded off the internet, but obviously wouldn't be able to tell who was trans or not anyway, because obviously. Anyway, this person says, just realised he is a bloke. Autogynous smirk. They love the little word games. Autogynous smirk in every pic. An obligatory, here's me with a sword because I'm totally not MRA. Why? Just make it up, mate. Just say what you want. Like, who cares? Who gives a shit whether it's true or not? No one. No one here cares. Everyone here's already accused me of gloating about cancer. Just say I have a sword. Like, why don't you tell them there's a photo of me stamping on puppies? There probably is. They're not going to look it up. Who cares? I have never in my life touched a sword. Ever. I've never posed with a sword. I've never taken a photo with a sword. Where has this come from? Well, I know where it's come from. It's just a thing. Trans women all have swords. So I'll just say about her, and it's probably true, and I'll probably get some likes, and then it's all part of the echo chamber, isn't it? No one cares. They both got me blocked anyway, so I'll never know. Just make it up. Just lie. You can say anything you want about trans people anything. And that is not an exaggeration. We have an even more ridiculous lie coming up. You can I almost think, I don't think you should do this, but I do think you could make a fake gender critical account, go into gender critical space, like a few things, get a few followers, and then make up anything. Just be like, trans women shot JFK. Like, just some, like, whatever. And someone will believe you. And if it's a little bit, if you say enough, actually, I reckon if you made 500 accounts and just really push that idea that a trans woman shot JFK, it would just become gender critical law. It'd end up on their websites, that would just be a fact, and they'd all believe it. Because you can just make up anything, they'll just believe it. Like that I have a sword. Or Katie Montgomery is the trans equivalent. So this person has put trans in quotes, but this person is also a trans person. And there's someone we talked about in a previous episode, who, interestingly, was the person who said that trans women don't grow breasts, and then linked me a paper which explicitly said trans women grow breasts. The breast tissue is like cis women's and not like cis men's. This person said, Katie Montgomery is the trans equivalent of Donald Trump. An intellectually challenged tin pot populist with zero understanding of science, like coming from this person. It's just so, they just get this little thing on where they've just decided, like, I have just decided that the science agrees with me, and so I'm just going to go on. That's just it. That's now my unshakable blind faith position. So I'm just going to search for the words breasts and trans women. Oh, I found a paper. So I'm just going to link it. I'm not even going to read it because I know that I'm right, because that's my premise to my entire worldview. And then when someone says, this actually says the opposite of your worldview, they just block you, move on, who cares, never going to have to think about that again. And then they come out with their little self-masturbatory nonsense about, oh, she's the real Donald Trump. It's interesting because, like, maybe I'm the trans Donald Trump, but do you know who the gender critical Donald Trump is? Donald Trump! Because he has all the same fucking ideas as you, and he wants all the same laws as you, and he's a shit person just like you. So, this also created a bit of a scene in gender critical land because, thankfully, genuine thanks to the gender critical people who had some integrity. I think if you only had 1 out of 100 integrity points, this would have gone over the line for you. So even the bottom of the barrel integrity people called this out because it's so disgusting. So this person is a lady who I actually know, and I don't think she would describe herself as gender critical. She's a radical feminist. She overlaps in various spaces. Anyway, so she said, in what universe is this, gender critical people, in what universe is this actually acceptable? I know that Katie rubs a lot of people up the wrong way, but she has been dehumanized to the point where shaming her over healthcare concerns is appropriate. This is a moral event horizon, folks. Tread carefully. And I think that's quite a fair comment. It's obviously targeted a bit more at the gender critical audience, but that's who she's writing to, so that's fine. And I appreciated her writing this, and I did thank her. And also thanks again in case she's watching. I do think that on one point, I just want to show all this bullshit and say gender critical is over the edge. They've lost it. They've dehumanized people. They're signing declarations that want to take away my healthcare. They're denying science. They're accusing everyone of having a fetish over worrying about cancer. Like they've lost it. But at the same time, that's the extremists, and there are a lot of extremists. But there are a lot of not extremists too, or people who are getting radicalized at the moment. And it needs people who, like, none of them are going to be watching this. None of them will care. But if they see people who are also in their movement or at the edge of their movement, or who are genuine feminists like this person, genuine radical feminists, saying, like, what are you doing, in a way that they'll hear, then maybe it will pull some of them out of the extreme side of it. And I would much rather that gender critical had just as many people and none of them were extremists than they were all extremists. Like, I know that having extreme people means that we can show everyone and say gender critical is extreme, but it is still worse because people aren't reacting to this and they're carrying on, and I don't want more extremists. It's just bad for everyone. So I know it's not enough that some people will stay gender critical and just say, I don't agree with this one thing when this kind of thing is every single day. But still, it's a good. And she is right, it is a moral event horizon. This it's beyond the horizon, I think. Anyway, I don't think I included a clip from it. No, so Graham Linehan saw this post and did a blog about her and told her to fuck off. He basically listed a few things, like Karen White and Jessica Yanov, and was like, that's why I don't care. As if that justifies it. Like, if the person who cures cancer also is like a neo-Nazi, then we can even both praise and put them down, and we can say that it literally doesn't matter how much good they've done in their life. If they were a Nazi, they are bad, and something has to happen about that. You don't get a free pass just because you've done something good. So the argument he's using here that, like, trans people are bad so I can do what I want, like, that doesn't hold. That's a way of justifying being an extremist. If, like, I would never use that justification for me. Like, so lots of these people have done extreme things, but I would never say any of this about them. I will tell them they're shit people. I will point out that they're being transphobic. I will point out that this is dehumanizing and disgusting. But I'm not going to start, like, accusing them of being gloating over cancer. Like, because you can't use someone else doing something bad to justify doing something bad. That's just bullshit. That's not how it works. So she's right. This then created Event Horizon Gate, where there was a huge argument in gender critical space about whether Graham Linehan had done the right thing or not. I mean, most of the big gender critical people stayed out of it. I don't think they would have missed it, but, best not to take a side when you're just trying to ruin people's rights. In internal struggles, you don't want to take a side. But lots of them did weigh in. I've not got the best order here. So this guy says, what does turning on Graham Linehan achieve? He has, at great personal sacrifice, been fighting for the rights of women and girls. Not cool. I mean, this is just pathetic. I said, maybe it's more important to do the right thing than blindly defend a friend. Like, even if you genuinely think that he has been defending the rights of women and girls, which is a joke, even if you did think that, then that wouldn't justify this. This is clearly past the limit, and it should be so easy. Apparently he didn't write this letter. Someone else wrote this letter. He could say, you know what? This was too far, and I apologise to Katie because this was a disgusting accusation. And all of his followers could say, Graham, that was actually disgusting, and I think that you shouldn't have done it. And I'm glad that you're not going to do it again, and you've learned, and now we're all better people. But instead, they just have to blindly defend him, because that's what gender critical is about. It's about just denying that transphobia can ever happen and blindly defending anyone who will stand up against trans people, and only getting rid of them if they become inconvenient. Not because they're doing the wrong thing. Like with Jennifer Bilek, they're not all suddenly saying, whoa, this is too far. They're like, oh, she's making us look bad, so I'm just going to quietly disown her. Sorry. Anyway, so this person then says, I'm tired of this. Okay, so he told a female human. He told a female human to fuck off. And why are we making this a thing? Are female people so infantilized that we can't handle it when a mate says fuck off? I'm not asked about males being denied mammograms. 153 likes. If you say fuck off, I'm not asked about males being denied mammograms. And yeah, even if you're talking about cis men, like, if they're being denied them, that means they need them and you're stopping them. And you should care. I actually am asked about everyone who is denied healthcare because it's wrong. That doesn't mean that people who don't need certain types of healthcare are being denied it when they don't get it. Like, I don't need a tooth extraction because I have no need for that. That's not me being denied a tooth extraction. That's me not needing it. Here we're talking about not males, but trans women who are, sometimes denied all kinds of healthcare, and they just say they don't care. Of course they don't care. Of course 153 of them don't care. They don't care at all if trans women have all their healthcare taken away. This isn't even trans healthcare. This is just healthcare for being a woman, and that's why they don't care. But it's just healthcare. You know, anyone can have breasts. Even cis men could develop breasts with hormone imbalances. So, and also he told a female human, just say woman. It's just disgusting. What's wrong with you? Like an alien. So then we got a part 2 from William's letter. It says, Dear Graham, well, that blew up a bit. Thank you to Sal Groves, spelt her name wrong, for bringing it to a wider audience. And apparently I'm completely fictional, according to one of Katie's friends. This is why I said allegedly. I fully accept that William could well be a real person. I'm not certain of that. I wouldn't know what odds to put on it. Probably is real. There's no reason why you'd make this person up. There were clearly so many beyond normal gender critical people that there's hundreds of them that would have written there's something this disgusting. It's just a bit weird though. Like, well, that blew up is such a Twitter thing to say. And then just, I'm completely fictional according to it. It just feels a little bit over defensive. I don't know. I couldn't say. There's also a difference in writing style. Like here we've got cheers, and on the other one it said yours sincerely. This one ends with commas at the end of like these floating sentences, and the other one didn't. And this one has loads of paragraph breaks, and the other one didn't. And I don't know. I couldn't say. I'm not going to start a conspiracy theory over this. Like, I'm just taking it as real, but it's just sus. Then they say, having calmed down a bit, I think my wider point got lost, namely that chemo drugs, hospital beds, mammogram machines, infusion, blah, 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 blah. These are all finite resources with costs attached. When trans-identified males take hormones and increase their risk of needing these resources, they are unnecessarily adding to the pressure of the health service. No, what unnecessarily adds to the pressure of the health service is reactionary shitheads refusing to, like, pay for the NHS. Like, just double the tax that everyone pays. Like, times the tax that everyone who earns over £100,000, times that tax that they pay to the NHS by 10, who gives a shit? And everyone else can pay double, down to, you know, when people start struggling to live and then they don't have to pay any. Because, why not? I'm on board with that. And you just know it's the same people. I can't make this accusation, but like, if there's not enough healthcare, if there's not enough people to do mammograms, then we need to pay the NHS more. We don't need to start banning trans women from getting mammograms. What a ridiculous, hateful, transphobic suggestion. Like, just plainly, it's just ridiculous. And then, of course, unnecessarily, of course, it's a choice. I chose to need this to live a happy life, of course. Then compares it to smoking, like standard, just disgusting. Just garbage, second letter, kind of just made it worse. I actually offered to William if he wanted, like I said, it was disgusting and he needs to apologise, but I've also said if he wants to contact me, my DMs are open and we can discuss, because he obviously doesn't understand why this is so disgusting. So if you're real, William, and you're watching this, my heart goes out to you for your children and yourself's loss, because that is really horrific. Everything else you've written is just disgusting, and you're like spitting on their memory to try and use this as some attack on someone else who can face breast cancer. Like, what's wrong with you? Grow up. Rant one out the way. I hope that wasn't too tedious a situation. I just needed to get that out, and I hope you just saw like the kind of stuff that you just get from gender critical people just all the time. And when I say all the time, this is more of the same in a totally different context, like days later. So I've seen several times for the last few months gender critical people saying the 6 words or 6 words as hashtags. And I didn't know what it was. And I know most of their memes because I talk to them all the time and every day and stuff. I just didn't know what the 6 words mean. The 6 word means. And what, just by coincidence, I had seen it, and then I was thinking about it kind of in the back of my mind, and one of my friends messaged me saying, do you know what this 6 words thing is? What's the 6 words? And I was like, you know what? I don't know. I will ask. So I just said to her, I'm just going to ask. And I often do this on Twitter. I just ask people stuff like this. So I said, I've seen a few gender critical people talking about the 6 words. Does anyone know what they are? I think that's a fairly reasonable thing to write. Again, just underlining how neutral this is. And then I found a post from, someone sent me, this isn't one of mine because it's got the dark mode screenshot. Someone sent me a post from Dr. Emma Hilton, who's a gender critical person, saying 6 words that perfectly encapsulate a movement, hashtag 6 words. And then the 6 words are, for the word gender, substitute sex. So, it's their sex, not gender thing. Okay. I still didn't really know what that was, but I was like, oh, okay, well, at least I know what the 6 words are now. For the word gender, substitute sex. Yeah, okay. It's like sex, not gender, but with 3 extra words for no reason. But one of the things that lots of people pointed out is the 6 words sounds a lot like the 14 words, which is probably something you need to Wikipedia, but is like a Nazi dog whistle. It's just a kind of far right thing to do for some reason, is to not say their actual opinion and get these little codes for each other. And lots of people pointed that out. Like, I got 95 comments here, like quite a lot of them. Quite a lot of them were saying, well, just a bit odd. And there were some jokes. Like, genuinely, I think it took maybe 50 replies before anyone actually knew what it was and sent me this. Most people had no idea. And it's not a very common gender critical meme. In fact, when I clicked on the hashtag, and I think now, if you click on the hashtag now, it's mainly people writing poems. It's like some 6 word challenge. It's not like, if you go on hashtag sex not gender, then it's almost all gender critical people. Hashtag 6 words is not a big one of their memes. So it's not even something that most people had heard of. So, 4 women Scott, who lost a court case this week, so are very angry. Gosh, sorry, my voice is going. 1 second. Anyway, 4 women Scott tried to sue the Scottish government this week to try and get them to make it so trans women don't count towards the quotas for women. So they're gonna introduce, or they already have introduced, quotas for the number of women you hire in government positions. So like, at least 30% of people have to be women or something, which is a good rule. I not everyone agrees with this kind of affirmative action thing, but I think it's probably good. And Foreman Scott wanted to exclude trans women from that, which is obviously bullshit, because then they would just never hire trans women. If you have a misogynist who is being forced to hire women by law, which is the only people who this law is going to affect, because it's not going to affect anyone who just hires men and women equally, because then they'll end up with half and half. It's only going to affect the misogynist, and the misogynist will see a woman and they'll be like, oh, I've got to hire this flipping woman. Then they find out she's trans. Nope. Like, not interested, because then she won't count towards their quota. So just make it so it'd be impossible for trans women to get hired in these jobs by misogynists. Not that you want to be hired by a misogynist anyway, but, it's not going to affect many people, but it's just yet another attack. But they lost the court case, so that's another good piece of news. Oh no, I just realised the sound was muted. How long has it been muted? Can someone just tell me? Did you hear the start of this little section? I fucking hate technical issues. Thank you for the person who called me. I now know what you're calling me about. Oh, okay. So I think I'm going to go back to... Yay, everyone can hear me again. Sound, 2 minutes. Okay, I'll go back to the start of this bit. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm probably going to skim over it quicker. So I had another bullshit gaslighting incident this week, only 2 days after that last one. Sorry, everyone. So I said... Right, let me get back in the headspace. Only 2 days after the last incident, I then had another thing, which was quite similar. So I had seen quite a few times people saying the 6 words or hashtag the 6 words or hashtag 6 words. And I didn't know what it was. I know most of the gender critical memes, like all the other ones like sex matters, sex not gender. Like I know, you get to learn them. I talk to gender critical people every single day, so I learn the memes. This isn't a popular one. I didn't know what it was. And I was thinking about it because I'd seen it earlier in the day. And then one of my friends DM'd me saying, what's this, the 6 words thing? I was like, I don't know. I will ask, I will find out. So I wrote, I've seen a few gender critical people talking about the 6 words. Does anyone know what they are? And I think that's a reasonable question. I kind of want to underline again. I just think that's kind of a reasonable question. And then, so it's like 100 replies here. It took about 40 replies of people saying, I don't know, before someone sent me this from Dr. Emma Hilton, where she says, 6 words, the 6 words that perfectly encapsulate a movement. 6 words, sex matters, sex not gender. And then the 6 words are, for the word gender, substitute sex. So, and this has 1,000 likes. So I guess, some of them have heard of it, but I hadn't heard it. So this is from December, so it's a couple of months old, but it hasn't reached me anyway. So I thought, well, maybe this, but something that lots of commenters pointed out is the 6 words sounds a little bit like the 14 words, which is a Nazi thing. And there's a Wikipedia page about it. It's worth looking up if you want to know what they are. But they often don't say the 14 words. They often just say 14 words. And that is like a little dog whistle between each other. So people were pointing that out because it is a bit like that. And I feel like if you're a reactionary movement who is often accused of being Nazi adjacent, you might learn some of the Nazi dog whistles and avoid them. Anyway, we found out that it was probably this. And then, again, 2 days after that horrific accuse me of gloating about being able to get cancer incident, 4Woman Scott said, that's Katie and Chums, mocking rape victims and calling them racist. What are you talking about? Mocking rape victims? Like, I hate saying this, but like, this isn't like all I did was post a man's story about losing his wife. No, you just go and look. Literally, all I did was ask the question. But I was like, well, maybe maybe there's something here that I don't understand. Maybe the 6 words aren't about this thing that Emma Hilton's posted. Maybe they're about, maybe it is something to do with rape victims. Maybe it's some thing and I just don't know it. And I genuinely panicked because I thought like, gosh, if I've just got 100 comments and accidentally mocked rape victims, that's horrible. It's the last thing I want to do. So I replied saying, wait, what? What the hell is this? Like, I was kind of shaken off because I hadn't recovered from the previous incident of, I feel like you're losing your mind when you say I'm worried about cancer and then literally hundreds of people pile on saying that you've got a fetish Like, it makes you doubt your sanity sometimes. And so I was still reeling from that. That was still going on. Like, Event Horizon Gate is still going on today. But I said, if the 6 words are anything about rape victims, then I unreservedly apologise. I did not know that at all. Does anyone know what this is? For Women Scott, can you explain? Or any of their followers? I am keen to get it right if so. And that was like, I mean, I can say that was genuine. That's which you can choose to believe or not. But like, of course, I would never want to. Like, mock rape victims would be disgusting. That's the kind of thing that you see gender critical people doing quite a lot, actually. But if I saw anyone doing it, then I would call them out. It's a horrible thing to do. Like, fuck off. But of course, that was just nonsense. The 6 words amendment to the Scottish law was, it was about a law about rape shelters and whether you can request a man or a woman specifically to help you. And I think that's a good rule to say, if a woman goes to a rape shelter, she should, basically the government should provide at least one man and at least one woman to all of these services so that men and women victims can say, can I actually be seen by a man or can I actually be seen by a woman? I think that's a good rule for these like sensitive situations. And the original law said gender and then they changed it to sex, which is, it's a little... They think it's a win. It doesn't actually change the law. There's nothing banning trans people. And what For Women Scott and the gender critical movement want is either to ban trans women from working these jobs altogether or to make it so you have to legally out yourself as trans when you get employed, which is, a violation of people's privacy and is completely garbage. And just to be clear here, if you say, I would like a woman, and a woman comes in, and you don't like the look of her, you are already allowed to say, no, I want someone else. And, sometimes rape victims are very racist or very homophobic and they see someone and they don't like them and it is shit. And you can say to them, well, you should stop being a racist. But at the same time, this is someone who is probably very stressed and needs help. And you're not defending their irrational prejudice to just try and provide for them. You can't always. Sometimes people have stupid irrational prejudices. This is a grey area and it's a difficult situation. But to have the power to say, not them, someone else, I think is a legitimate power because it doesn't have to be prejudice. Sometimes, you might know them or like they might say something horrible to you or anything. But I think that's fine. But to require someone who you can't even tell there's anything wrong with them to out themselves is just a violation of privacy and disgusting. Anyway, so that's what it's like. And that this is For Women Scott just deciding that me asking about their little meme is mocking. Like, it's just so no integrity at all. Like, they know they made this up. They know this is a lie. No one thinks otherwise. So disgusting. I think the reason why they've made it up is because For Women Scott lost a court case this week. They were trying to make it so in Scotland they either do have or they're going to have quotas for women in government positions. So like at least 30% of the positions have to be hired by women or something, which some people don't like those kinds of affirmative action laws, but I think it's probably good. They wanted to exclude trans women from those quotas. So if you had to hire 3 women and you hired a trans woman, she wouldn't count towards the quota, which of course means that people who aren't misogynists, it wouldn't make any difference because they're not being forced to hire extra women because they're already hiring enough anyway. But people who are misogynists would just no longer hire trans people or trans women because they would they would see this woman who was good for the job and they'd be like, oh, I've got to hire a woman. And then they'll be like, oh, she's trans, so she doesn't count to my quota. So therefore, why would I hire her? So it benefits no one apart from the misogynists, of course. But they lost that case. So that's good. And it's cost them a lot of money and they're on the verge of going bankrupt, maybe. So, don't lash it. Like, you just have no integrity. If you had integrity, you wouldn't have made this up. And it's just another... I don't know why. Ridiculous. Anyway, right, we're on to the brain rot section. We'll power through these. Sorry for the technical issues earlier. Hopefully I'll cut them out of this video. Anyway, this person says, this is, again, a gender critical person taking something really emotionally heavy and something that genuinely deserves empathy, regardless of the rest of their bullshit. And then just tacking on some anti-trans bullshit at the end. And it's like some emotional, like Trojan horse. It's like, with the previous one, it's like, do you feel for someone who's lost their wife to cancer? Of course you do. You're a human. Anyone who's lost their wife to cancer is horrible. It's like, cool, well then you should want to ban trans women from the toilets. Like, anyway, this person says, I've had a few friends who have had miscarriages. They were all in the public bathroom. I mean, well, that's horrible. You know, women do have, or people do have miscarriages. I'm sure some trans men have had miscarriages in public spaces before, and you know, it's emotionally devastating. There's a lot that comes with that, especially if you knew you were pregnant and you're expecting to, you know, have a child. It's horrible. And then, of course, they do their bullshit. They say, and the very last thing a woman losing her baby wants is a tactless autogynephile sticking their nose into a woman's worst life situation to use as a fantasy later. Like, disgusting people. What is wrong with you? More of the same dehumanized trans people who, like, imagine just, this is horrible. Someone is like crying in the bathroom, and you go in and they're like, you know, maybe they need to reach out and they'd explain the situation. They say they're having a miscarriage and maybe they just need a stranger to just hold their hand for a bit or something. I don't know. I've not encountered someone in that situation. And I'm sure some people just deal with it on their own, and some people need their friends there, and who knows. And then you assume, because your brain has rotted so much, that a trans woman offering support in that situation is actually doing it for some sex fantasy. Like, what is absolutely beyond deranged, like so disgusting. So you've lost your mind so much to transphobic brain rot that this seems like a reasonable thing to say to you. You've dehumanized trans people so much. Like you such a loser. My goodness. Right, so here's a little ridiculous thing. So Eddie Izzard says, I'm a trans superhero, but if I'd have lived in Nazi Germany, I would have been murdered for it. Yes, I'm not quite sure why this is the headline. I'm not sure why this person has been completely incapable of cropping. I didn't read this article. But then they said, no, Eddie, Nazi officers were keen on transvestites. Holocaust appropriation is not a good look. Keen. Nazi officers were keen on transvestites. Eddie Izzard did previously describe herself as a transvestite. I don't know up until when, but I don't think does anymore. I'm not sure. But regardless of the label, the Nazis did not like any form of trans people. In the Weimar Republic, before the Nazis got in power, you actually had to have a cross-dresser license, which is a bit like the equivalent of a gender recognition certificate today, I guess, saying that you're allowed to wear the wrong clothes in public. They didn't like it, and then when the Nazis turned up, they got rid of that and they burnt all of the research down. They killed all the trans people. We all know that. We know the story. We know the famous picture. Gender criticals need to hide that because, of course, they do. Someone else here says, there's a whole book of photos of Nazi men dressing as women, and then pictures of clearly not them dressing as women, but them, I don't know, wearing coconut bikinis. You got to wonder about the connection. So, like, here is some men dressing up as a joke, therefore they like trans people. That's literally what they're going for here. It makes no sense at all. But then this person, who gets the Alien Head Award of the Week, says, it's kind of a hush-hush thing for neo-Nazis. And I'm not one, by the way. I was not thinking you were until you said that, and now I'm very suspicious. Hitler once, in a non-official meeting with one of his officers that he didn't mind soldiers that wore trans, but he didn't want them close to him because he felt uncomfortable. Like, just totally trust me, mate. Like, by the way, I'm not a Nazi, but I'm just telling you about the secret meeting that Hitler had that no one ever wrote down and we don't know. Shh, it's all a secret. But like, Hitler actually loves trans people. Like, he said it to himself. Not that I'm a Nazi, by the way. I'm not. What are you on about, mate? Super straight colours. Just make up what you want, mate. Just make it up. Like, no one cares. They'll all believe you. Cis is a slur in the same way that tranny, the N-word, and homo are all slurs. Did I do this one last week? I can't remember. Maybe I did. Well, we're doing it again. No, they aren't. This is the classic. If you had to censor all of the words apart from the one that you're claiming is a slur, then maybe that one isn't as bad as the other ones. Idiot. There is... I shouldn't laugh at this one, but this is so mad. This is, again, a case of just make it up. Just literally say anything. Here we go. There is currently a movement to decriminalise female genital mutilation because technically transition surgeries qualify as genital mutilation. 300 likes. I mean, no, there isn't. Literally no one who is pro-FGM, who are all disgusting people and fuck off. None of them are pro-trans, obviously. There is absolutely no similarity. Do you know the only people in the world who say that trans surgery is a mutilation are gender critical people? That's your meme. You've got your own meme and mixed up with another one of your memes and got confused and then just lied about it. Just completely invented a story. Talking to Jennifer Bilek here as well. Just nonsense. No one thinks that trans surgeries count as genital mutilation because they don't. Because it's absolutely disgusting to equate these two things. FGM is a misogynistic, vile, violent, literally mutilating process which can ruin people's lives. And transition surgeries are performed by expert surgeons that drastically improve people's lives and aren't mutilation in any sense. There's no ambiguous overlap here at all. There's no question about the two. Just ridiculous. Here's LGBT Alliance Ireland, who are, according to IP address, based in London, and they say, for some people, sexuality is not a choice. We call those people straight or gay. For some people, sexuality is a choice. We call those bisexual. How can you be so unaware of what a bisexual person is? No one chooses to be bisexual. I know what they're trying to say, that bisexual people are attracted to men and women so they get to choose between men and women. But even that isn't how it works. They do then go on to say, but even then you can't choose who you love. Sexuality is visual. But it's just worded in the most ridiculous way. And I just, this is just so typical of LGBT Alliance, who this week spent all their time writing letters to politicians urging them to oppose conversion therapy ban because LGBT rights, of course. No, they're just so incompetent. Everything about LGBT Alliance is just incompetent and ridiculous. Several politicians openly called them a hate group this week, so that was good. Anyway, right, home straight. This is something from, I'm not entirely sure where this is from. Someone sent me this. It says it's from Gender Critical. It makes it look like it's from Reddit, but their Reddit got closed down. So either they've got new Reddit, or this is an old screenshot, or they've got a new website. I know they've got Over It, and I know they've got Spinster, which are like the same things. They might have a new Reddit clone. This person, it's just unbelievable. This person says, I'm 5'10", pretty broad, and not particularly ladylike in the way I move and speak. If you take a look, I'm clearly female. Okay. I've had it happen a few times where people ask me how long I've been a woman, or they will slip something into the conversation and let me know that I've been rumbled. I genuinely don't say anything now because sometimes people don't believe me and I don't want to have to argue about it. It does piss me off though. I mean, I think that trans women or cis women would be a bit pissed off if someone's like, oh, how long have you... Oh, look who's here. Like, oh, how long have you been a woman? It's just kind of a shit question. Don't ask people that. Don't, like... You could, if you really need it, if you know someone very well and you're in a good conversation, you could say, when did you come out? Not how long have you been a woman? It's not the way to say it. And to say someone's been rumbled is just really offensive. Don't do that to anyone. So that's a good reason to be annoyed. But then she said, I brought this up with a friend and she told me off, gave me a real drubbing about it, telling me I was insensitive and transphobic, and the fact I was being insulted by being mistaken for a man in a dress meant I clearly was a bigoted TERF. Potentially her friend is an idiot, but that's probably not how it went down, is it? You probably said, oh, they keep thinking I'm a fucking tranny. And then they were like, well, what's wrong with being a trans person? And you're like, oh, disgusting men in dresses. And they're like, well, I think you're a transphobe, mate. I mean, I'm confident that's how it went down because, of course, that's how it went down. But anyway, it's saying, I've known this friend for 30 years. I feel lost. I have to hide my own thoughts. Anyway, sob story. Oh no, you're transphobe and people don't like you, of course. Get over it. But then some of the replies, and they're like, go with it. When they clock you as trans, slap them on the arse and say you can't wait to share a bathroom with you. Serves them right for misgendering you. The original poster says, I have a deep voice, maybe I can take it a bit lower. Fancy a fuck, darling. I can do wonders with my girl dick. Yeah, sounds just like what a trans woman would say. And then you're waving stunning, this is off the charts. Like, yeah, have your little joke about, you know, trans women. Of course, you're on some hate forum for trans hate, so that's going to happen. But like, just to be clear here, you're saying... I mean, because of the gender critical movement. Oh, Poppy, for goodness sake. Ugh. She just jumped on the keyboard. I hope she hasn't messed anything up. Yeah, you better not have. Ugh. I hope you're all still there. Oh. So this lady is saying, because basically of transphobia, I get accused of being a man. And then they were like, oh, why don't you try and sexually assault someone? And that will go well for you. That will be good for us. It won't be, because if they're already, if the society is already targeting you for the transphobia, if the transphobia gets worse, it's going to be much worse for you. It's going to happen more. And if people get the idea in their mind that trans women slap people on the arse and say, do you fancy a fuck? Then people are going to start acting out against people they think are trans. And that's going to include you. And just to be clear, this doesn't really happen to me. So it's going to affect you more than me. It's going to affect you first. So however bad you make it, it's going to be worse for you than it is for most trans people, or lots of trans people. So then they say, this is another commenter says, you have every right to be upset when someone thinks you're part of a science-denying religion. Posted on Gender Critical. Ironic there, mate. Anyway, this is more proof that transgenderism is a shallow, regressive ideology. Is it? So random people are transphobic and accuse you of being trans, and that's trans people's fault, is it? Okay. If strangers are going around making judgments on appearance to validate the trans, then it's dangerous. That no one who has ever said you've been rumbled, how long have you been a woman? They're not supporting trans people. They're gender critical people, or just general transphobes. And then they say, and this is why I included this, if any trans rights activists are lurking here, this is not the same as a woman clocking a trans woman. Being reminded of your biological sex is not hate speech and it's not rude. Yes, standard gender critical garbage. But then they say, a woman being wrongly associated with sexist ideology is extremely rude. Claiming that because of her looks, she must have been born male is extremely sexist. Oh, Poppy sneaking through. Stay there. Yes, it is. It is extremely sexist to see a woman who's like a bit masculine or a bit square or a bit tall and go, oh, did you used to be a man? That is rude. That is sexist. So why, in the previous paragraph, were you defending that? It just so plainly cognitive dissonance, garbage, like contradictory. It's just, ugh. I just can't get my head around these transphobic, gender critical people who are like, oh, I keep getting accused of being a man, so I'm going to contribute to rising societal transphobia. This is not going to go well for you, and it's your fault. And you can blame it on trans people all you like, but it's you doing it, and it's you who's going to suffer. I mean, I'm going to suffer too, maybe, and loads of other women, mainly cis women, are going to suffer too because of your stupid, bullshit, extremely sexist ideology. But it's going to affect you. So anyway, last few. This guy's made several appearances in the past, and here he is with 2 absolute zingers in a row. I saw someone describe this guy as the most a man who's the most consistent cell phones of all time, and I think it's true. Like he comes up with some zingers. Today he says, "I forbade a woman from talking about feminism until she could accurately tell me what a woman is, and I stand by it." Okay, man. I'm sure that she's not interested in you anymore. And then this, so this is the guy who in a previous episode said that he has a fetish for vagina people or something. Anyway, I wonder why he's single. Here he says, it really sucks. You get to know people on here and eventually they become your friends, like your real friends, but they live on your phone. I mean, yes, lots of people have internet friends, but given your previous output, I can see where this is going. And then they say 2 + 2 is 4 and Twitter bans them. Of course. That's definitely what all I did was say 2 + 2 is 4. And then you're left with a screenshot about the hateful contact. Sad face. It is lame when Twitter bans people who you like, even if they have said something stupid or offensive or called someone the C word, which is the most common reason my friends get banned. But like, I don't know. I feel like anyway, and we'll just go, I think this is the no, there's 2 more. This is the final of the ridiculous comments where they'll just make it up. You know, this has been the theme of this week, just make it up, mate. Here we go. It's got to the point that they, trans people, are willing to force the law to ignore the Geneva Convention to change the world as part of their psychiatric treatment plan. The Geneva Convention is the thing that like stops you from torturing prisoners of war. What are you talking about? Oh. I've had enough gender critical this week. If someone asks me my pronouns, I'll be replying. And brace yourself for this one, everyone, because this guy has absolutely slammed it. He will be replying. Here are my no nouns, adult human male. Whoa! Do you see? Because it normally says pro, and he put the word no in there. Oh, amazing. But he also then put a comma rather than the colon, so it sounds like he's talking to someone who's an adult human male. Anyway, thus concludes the brain rot. Thank you for sticking around this week, everyone. I really appreciate it. I'm glad that I didn't get as drunk as last week, and I'm glad it didn't quite go on as long as last week, but it still went on very long. There's been a lot of bullshit recently. I think there was a lot to rant about this week. But I'm feeling really good. Like last week, I think everyone was very stressed about the census stuff and, you know, the upcoming case with for woman Scott, who then lost it. And then we had the trans kids ruling today. So there's good reason to be optimistic. So yeah, thanks for sticking around. Sorry about accidentally muting my microphone. I needed to cough and I didn't want to be like down the microphone, so I muted it and then I pressed the unmute button and obviously didn't press it hard enough. So I'll try and edit that out in the thing, and hopefully everyone who's watching this and afterwards won't know what I'm talking about. So I'd just like to say that tomorrow I have the transatlantic call-in show, and me and Arden have been baiting people all week, so hopefully we're going to get some gender critical callers. And so that should be exciting and a bit spicy. On Saturday and then on Sunday, we've moved the XX Factor to Sundays now so that it doesn't clash with Transatlantic Calling Shells for getting the news on my shows then. So thank you very much to Krista for being flexible to move it to Sunday. So we'll get a full episode in this week and there won't be any time zone confusion. And then on Wednesday is Trans Day of Visibility. And I'm going to be hosting, hopefully, if it all goes to plan, a big super stream and basically start after work. I'm not sure what time yet. I'll announce all the details over the next few days. And we'll just get trans people on one at a time who are cool trans people and just talk to them. And if you have questions in chat, you can ask them and we'll just hang out. It's just going to be trans people hanging out and laughing about stuff and talking about the projects they're working on and all that kind of stuff. So that should be fun. It's just about being visible. So far, we've got some cool guests. There's quite a few guests still to announce, hopefully. I've got a few good ones still. Please reply to me. We've got some cool guests already, if you check my Twitter, that I've announced. And yeah, so that should be exciting. So maybe see you all on Wednesday. Oh, we're going to be raising money for a charity. I think, yeah, I'll say, I think it's going to be Gallup UK, who deal with LGBT people who are depressed and domestic situations and have a helpline. I've messaged them. Hopefully they'll respond. If anyone knows them, tell them to respond to my email. Yeah, hopefully this is all going to come together over the next few days. And big shout out to Thema Sophie, who's been helping me set it all up, and to some of the mods in chat who have also been helping me. So thank you very much, everyone. And yeah, so that should be really exciting. And I'm going to be exhausted because we've already got like 8 guests and there's possibly going to be 12 in total. And it's going to be great. And we've got like a good range of people. And it's going to get more diverse as more people reply to my messages, hopefully. Yeah, see you all soon. Thank you very much for sticking around. I love you all. Yeah, amazing. Thank you, everyone. Oh, Poppy, stop walking on the keyboard.